In a situation like this, when we have multiple horses, somewhere like horse shepherd is completely invaluable to these horses because they have the time and the funding to be able to support these horses back to health. And in this case, the funding came from Racing Victoria. Again, was just given no questions asked to look after these horses. So these horses were extremely lucky because not only did they have the place to go in horse shepherd, but they also had the funding from Racing Victoria to provide the very expensive care and feeding that they needed to get them back to healthy horses.
When I went out to horse shepherd the day after they'd been seized and, you know, after they'd been sort of cared for or had veterinarians attend to them for 24 hours, I'd never seen anything like it. As I said earlier, my exposure to horses at the time was very minimal. I'd seen race horses in full training that were cared for immaculately because they were going out to compete in races. So they're looking $1 million, and I'd seen horses from an equestrian perspective, again, fed and cared for like athletes. I'd never seen skeletons, basically. They were walking skeletons, bag of bones with a bit of fur covering them that I didn't think that horses could survive looking like that, from my limited experience. So to see them, it was gut-wrenching. It was sickening.
I don't know how you can have a horse in that condition and ignore it. I don't. I don't think it can be ignorance. I think anyone that had never seen a horse before and you showed them one of our really healthy horses' photos and that horse's photos would know straight away that there was a problem. That was that bad. We have a policy, you've got to be careful, right? You never know what's going on in people's lives. And there can be mental illness but you can't forgive this one because of the level of cruelty. You cannot forgive this one. This person had trained horses. You can't tell me that's just cruelty. I can't excuse this one. I really can't. And I do get angry. Really angry because I think our laws are weak. Are really weak.
I think Racing Victoria certainly stuffed it up right royally in the lead up to it happening. They were pretty quick to act afterwards. I spoke to Racing Victoria in the days following that, but I also didn't see a lot of spin from them either. They'd tend to put up their hand and say, look, we have just buggered this one up and we've got to try and fix it. And I would certainly hope that both the RSPCA and Racing Victoria have put things in place that these things will never, ever happen again.
Horses are very attuned, and I think you'll see that with the rise of a lot of equine therapy and things like that where they're getting used a lot. They're amazing animals. And part of that is logical, right? Because they live in herds. They've got to be able to read each other, otherwise they'd be fighting and bickering and probably like people, right? So, that doesn't surprise me. But the other thing is their will to survive. And that gets me every time I see videos like the Mirror Mist. A lot of them were healthy and a lot of them, had a really strong will to survive. But so when you see Bulla horses, what they go through and come out the other side, horses want to live. It's as simple as that. Come on.
Anne's favourite out of the Bulla, and that does actually come from her saving him a number of times through near-fatal infections, is Quinn.
Come out. No?
I haven't seen firsthand some of the battles that he's had to go through, but I've seen some of the vision, I've seen some of the photos of him, and speaking to Anne, there's been times where I think, she was resigned to the fact that they would probably lose him. He's had a lot of complications along the way, but from what I hear, he's her pride and joy. He's her favourite, and I know it would be hard to play favourites.
Oh, my love of my life, Quinn. Now, we've got a fire plan, and it's, you've got to open the gates. This many horses, we wouldn't get them out in time, but he'd be on the trailer. He'd absolutely be on the trailer. He'd be out before me. Someone would have to take Quinn away.
And Anne's made that clear, like we'll defend the property from fire, but if we know that there's a fire coming, he's going to be on the float and he's going to leave the property.
Who's the hero?
The horses. Absolutely. There's no story without them. Actually, Quinn's the hero. Aren't ya?
She has stayed up overnight with him when he's been gravely ill, and even recently we had a near scare where actually I thought he was on a decline again and that he'd had an infection. So we watch him every day, whether it's Anne or myself, and we monitor the brightness in his eyes, the colour of his gums, the gleam on his coat. So you notice it because you become so close to him.
I am convinced that Quinn's troubles are from being malnourished as a foal. You'd have to think that's true. He has, at times, a low immunity, or at all times. So we almost wrap him up in cotton wool. So if he gets a scratch, like a normal horse, but he's in mud, you guarantee he'll pick something up. And we have spent hours keeping this horse alive, and we've spent money on feed and vet bills. I think you've got the photos when he lost all his skin, when he got an infection. He's what makes it all worthwhile. He kind of caps it off. He's just special. He's just really special. Come on. Good boy.
And he might also be the most talented horse going forward under saddle. He's still a very young horse, being a foal when they were found 5 years ago. He's still got, plenty of years ahead of him, and by the sounds of it, a big future under saddle.
To be able to have Anne's support to be allowed to ride him is so significant. Like, to be offered the ride and to eventually down the track competing once he's going well under saddle is just, it's also the level of trust that Anne has in me.
It's really satisfying to see the media reports of these Bulla horses either going on to being ridden horses or paddock companions or anything. Just seeing them healthy and living a happy life is just amazing, because the horses that I saw when I was there, it would have been hard to believe that we would have been able to get them back to that.
I think Quinn symbolises what we do, that transformation, that change, that's what these paddocks are for, that's what the Serena's for, is being able to take something that's so badly done by and turn it into that.
He's only ridden for very short bursts. He's an amazing horse. He's so trainable. I've never had a horse so trainable before, and such a joy to ride.
I think all the Bulla horses are heroes, to be honest, for what they went through. And I think his mum, who sadly passed away last year, the fact that she was able to raise him, they even survived. I don't know how we survived, I mean, let's not forget how many dead horses there were on that property. And then everything he goes through, he's just so stoic, and he's clever. He's not a dopey horse. He's just Quinn. He's a symbol to me of what those horses went through and what lasting damage. It's not just about that first year and you get them looking good. Some of them get to survive, but once we've got here, they're scarred, and it'll last them forever. And so Quinn will stay. But yeah, he's really special. These two are the two Bulla mares that we have that live together. So this is Araha. Now Araha, as you can see, good girl, has got a love heart. Look at that, it's almost perfect. Stop it, show it off. And Araha means love in Maori, so that's why she's Araha. And she's just beautiful. And she's one of our sponsored horses, so somebody pays towards all her upkeep. And this is Audrey. Oh, Audrey. Audrey's never quite thrilled about things, are you, Audrey? But she's sweet, she's really sweet. And they're very bonded, and it's not a surprise considering what they went through together, right? And they just gonna live out here at the sanctuary. Can't wonder, help but wonder, why these two made it in those terrible conditions. What, you know, what constitutes their character, or what constitutes their, you know, their ability to survive when others didn't. Hey? See?